Welcome to home visit number 1. If you are interested to see how you can play a stereo system and a 7.1.4 Atmos surround sound system in one tiny room, then this is the video for you. Welcome to home visit number 1. In this series I show you the audio systems of some of my subscribers. Today we have a look at the system from Ronald. Ronald is a Dutch guy and he has managed to fill up his little room in an amazing way. This little room houses a stereo setup, a 7.1.4 Atmos surround setup and a serious computer setup. So first let's focus at the stereo setup. His amplification is a Denon X3600H. Now this is an AV receiver, but for his stereo setup he only uses the preamp section. For stereo power he uses a 2x 120 watts Onkyo M5060H, and this beast weighs in at 17 kilos and is connected to the loudspeakers with the Rocket 44 loudspeaker cable from AudioQuest. Now in order to get a little tube magic in his tubeless system, he placed a Yakin CD3 tube buffer in between the pre and power amp. His sources are a custom-built HT PC, meaning home theater PC, for streaming Deezer. He uses a Nakamichi CR2E cassette deck. I have the same deck and indeed this has a very nice sound. There is a Pioneer TX9500 tuner and a Denon DBT3313UD SACD Blu-ray player. His digital signals run through a Breeze Audio A10 DA converter, and last but not least there is a TEC TN300 with Nagaoka JT322 cartridge to spin his vinyl. The signal from the TEC runs through the Shitmani phono preamp. Cables are mostly Monster and AudioQuest, and that is the setup for his stereo system. Now this setup would be enough to fill up most listening rooms, but we are not done yet. There is also a 7.1.4 Atmos surround sound setup in this little room, so let's have a look at that. But before I move on to that, something about the loudspeakers. Ronald uses 2 pairs of loudspeakers and he can use either set for home cinema or stereo. So there is the MB Quart 2000 loudspeaker. This is a German loudspeaker. It weighs 33 kilos and is a 3-way bass reflex system with 2 bass drivers, 2 mid-range drivers and 1 tweeter in what they call a Dapolito arrangement. They will take 160 to 350 watts of power. They have a sensitivity of 88 dB and operate at 4 ohms. Their range is from 28 Hz up to 32,000 Hz. The other loudspeaker set is the TA Criterion T160, a 3-way transmission line loudspeaker with also 2 bass drivers, 2 mid-range drivers and 1 tweeter in a Dapolito arrangement. The transmission line also uses 2 bass drivers inside the transmission line, so 7 drivers per side. They require 160 to 240 watts of power and operate at 4 ohms, 90 dB sensitivity, and they weigh 32 kilos apiece. So he can use either of these loudspeakers for stereo or for home cinema, and he can make that switch on the Onkyo amplifier. Now let's get back to the surround setup. The center loudspeaker is a 3-way design from SVS, called the Ultra Center. This is an 8 ohms, 87 dB unit that can take 225 watts of power and consists of 1 tweeter, 1 mid-range and 2 bass drivers. For the side surrounds, he uses the MB Quart 980S version 2 loudspeakers. This is a 4-way closed system, so a tweeter, a mid-range, a mid-bass and a bass driver, and these are 4 ohms, 86 dB. The rear surrounds are also from MB Quart. It is the 280, a 2-way closed system with a paper mid-bass driver and titanium tweeter. They operate at 4 ohms, and in order to get the tweeter at the right position, he turned them upside down. And because this is an Atmos setup, you need ceiling speakers. for this he uses 4 prime satellites by SVS. This is a two-way ADOM bass reflex system, and that makes 7.4. And all we need now is a subwoofer to make this a 7.4.1 surround sound system. And for this he uses the PB12 NSD, also from SVS, a ported sub with a 400 watt internal amp. And there you have it. 2 systems and 13 loudspeakers in a tiny room, and that is without even mentioning his multiple screen computer setup. And I have to give credits to Ronald for cramming so much stuff in a tiny room while not giving the impression of overcrowding. He even has his record collection in there, so it is full, but it's not crowded. Also, imagine all the wiring that goes into this setup. Well done. So what about the sound? Well, Ronald says that the MB Quad 2000 loudspeakers sound big and pretty neutral. Now, MB Quad has a reputation for sounding analytical, but according to Ronald, this is very dependent on the other equipment that you use. The reason for 2 big main loudspeaker sets is just because he wants to change his sound from time to time. And the TNAs sound even bigger than the MB Quads, and according to Ronald, they may even be a little bit too big for this room. The overall sound he calls gigantic, and I have no reason to doubt him. And last but not least, he has full voice control over the system by using Google, and he also has his devices in a Logitech Harmony remote, so convenience is a big thing here. As for my own opinion on this system, I really like how he created his own man cave, and I can only imagine that it is a pleasure to listen to music or watch movies on this system. And so we come to the end of the first home visit. And I want to thank Ronald for his patience and for his willingness to join in this little experiment of mine. If you would like to show your system on the Audiophile Barista, you can contact me on theaudiophilebarista@gmail.com. And for now I say thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.